Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, coming from where everybody is. We're super excited to kick off day 2 with the Responsive Nonprofit Summit here with Virtuous. I am super excited with this workshop that we're going to have with my good friend here, Tony. I consider him the OG of all planned gift fundraising and like learning and growing. And I've learned so much from him when I was in the space. I'm Eric Tamales. I'm our chief evangelist here at Virtuous, and I can't wait to kickstart this conversation. Please, in the chat, share where you're coming in from. We want to engage you guys like if you're participating with RNS in the past. We don't like just sitting here talking at you guys. We want to engage. We want to hear from you. We want your questions. We want polls. We want activity and engagement, because that's just who we are. We want to be able to have this a part of our community and everything else. Tony, I want to have you introduce yourself and your background, but I'm super excited to debunk the top 5 myths of planned giving and how our nonprofit organizations and fundraisers grow generosity. Tony, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I saw Boston, Massachusetts. I saw San Antonio, Texas, the Riverwalk. You got to love the Riverwalk in San Antonio. Thank you, Eric. I've been in planned giving since 1997, so 27 years. I've been a frontline fundraiser in planned giving, and I've been a consultant since 2003. I'm excited to be with the Responsive Nonprofit Summit. I love RNS. The energy. It's cool. It's
so good.
Virtual. It's free. It's where fundraisers belong, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Tony. And Tony and I are both Duquesne and CMU alums from Pittsburgh, so we're super excited to have some of that connection here. So I always bring it back to Pittsburgh in some way, Tony. So.
Yes, you're the unofficial mayor. I know that. I know that. All right.
After you, sir.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Let's do the simple screen share.
Oh, I see Lincoln, Nebraska. Love it.
There we are. Responsive Nonprofit Summit. You know, I saw on Twitter or X, the average attention span is 9 seconds. And I thought, that's enough time for my mother to create guilt. I'm coming over for dinner. Can't you stay for the night? I'm coming to stay for the night. Can't you stay the weekend? I'm coming to stay for the weekend. Take me on a cruise. I'm taking you on a cruise. Can't you move back home? I'm moving back home. Let's get cemetery plots. So, you know, at its simplest level, that's a little bit about motherly guilt, which some of you may or may not have experienced. Most likely you did somewhere along the line. But going to the next level, it's about a deeper relationship. And I would like to help you this afternoon or this morning, depending where you are, have deeper relationships with your planned giving donors. Because when you get to know folks at this level, where they're including you in their long-term plans, things come out and you just get to know folks so much better. You start to enjoy deeper donor relationships. And that's what I hope you will get out of debunking the top 5 myths of planned giving. Deeper relationships. These insidious myths. I hate these myths. There are many. It's hard to pick the top 5, but I have chosen the ones that annoy me the most. And those are the top 5 that we will be, beheading, cutting off at the knees. I don't like these myths, in case that's not clear. So here's what we're going to cover, as well as getting rid of these insidious myths, the what and why of planned giving, make sure we're all on the same page, and who your best prospects are, how to get started in planned giving. Got a little surprise there for our hosts and how to get started. Some simple marketing ideas and very brief continuing ed if you want to know more about planned giving, dive in deeper. What and why? When folks are thinking about a planned gift, and we're going to be talking about a specific type of planned gift, one of many today, they are thinking about how your work, your mission, fits inside their long-term plans. their estate plan, their retirement plan, where they are taking care of their loved ones, right? Right alongside their dear loved ones, there's a gift for you. That's what you'll be talking to both folks about. And for today, planned giving means a gift of cash at the donor's death. We're going to be talking specifically about gifts in wills. There are other types of planned gifts, but today, as we debunk these nasty myths, we're going to be focusing on gifts in wills. So these are long-term gifts, okay? It is a gift of cash to your nonprofit at the donor's death. Why are we thinking about planned giving? You're already motivated to be here, so you don't need a lot of motivation, right? But just in case, let's say you need to defeat the arguments of some of the naysayers that might be back in the office, or hopefully not, but maybe on your board. We can't do planned giving. Why should we? Well, it's long term. It's going to hurt our other fundraising. We're going to see about some of these objections very, very shortly. But the overarching reason why it's the sustainability of your work, of your mission. You know how important your work is to your community, whether that is however you define community. It is the local community, or it's your state, or your province, if you're joining us from Canada. However you define community, maybe broader than that. You know how important your work is to that community. It has to be continued for decades and generations to come. Planned giving will help you with that sustainability objective. And how specifically does it do that? By helping you either launch or grow your endowment. Because so many of these planned gifts come unrestricted. And as the evangelist for planned giving, Eric said, Eric is the evangelist for virtuous and responsive fundraising. I'm the evangelist for planned giving. Though too many evangelists. No, not too many. There's never enough evangelists. Never enough passion. Never enough. Certainly never too much. So I'm always encouraging nonprofits that I'm working with to include as much of that unrestricted giving as possible in their endowment. I know that there are more immediate concerns sometimes, but as much as possible, you want these unrestricted dollars into your endowment. And that's how planned giving helps with your sustainability. So who are the best prospects for planned giving? You want to make sure you're talking to the right folks. Otherwise, you're going to run into more objections than you need to. It's going to be an awkward conversation. You want to be talking to the people who love your work. We know that they love your work because these are your consistent, committed, loyal donors. If you've been around for 40 years, and some of your organizations may be longer than that, but let's take 40 years as an example. These are the folks who have been giving to you for 30 or 35 years. And maybe over those 30, 35 years, they've got 40 or 50 gifts because they're giving multiple times in some years. Now, I'm not saying by any means that you have to be 40 years old for your nonprofit to be successful in planned giving. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. If you're just 5 or 10 years old, then you're looking for the folks who have been giving for those 5 or 10 years, or four of the 5, or 7, 8, or 9 out of the 10, right? You're looking for longevity, consistent, committed, loyal donors. And they may have skipped a couple of years here and there. I'm not saying their giving has been, uninterrupted for decades, but overall, they're your most committed, loyal donors. That's how we know they love your work. And if you have age in your CRM, we're looking for folks roughly 55 to 60 and over. If you don't have age, again, no reason to fret. If just because you're not 40 years old doesn't mean that you can't be successful in planned giving. Just because you don't have age in your CRM database does not mean you're not going to be successful in planned giving. You could be enormously successful. Just use the giving history as a proxy, and that'll be sufficient. If you do have age, I like to start with 55 to 60 and over, because that's roughly the age where large numbers of people are thinking about their long-term plans, their estate plan and their retirement plan, as a method of giving back to the causes that have been important to them in their lives. Okay. It's not the first time they start thinking about their long-term plans, especially wills. It should be decades before that. But as a method of giving back, that's when they start thinking about using their plans in that way. And I like to look for the board. Question, Eric?
Yeah, Tony, I got a question from Dr. Sandy. She's asking, how do we find these donors when we are a newer organization?
Dr. Sandy, they're newer. I don't know how many years. I like to see at least an organization that's 5 years old, Dr. Sandy, because Dr. Sandy, do you have a PhD? Is that right, Dr. Sandy? Or MD, DO? What's your? I'm interested in what the doctor is.
She PhD, and she's got 3-year organization.
Okay, I would say, I'm glad you're here, Dr. Sandy, because you're thinking ahead. At 3 years old, there might be a concern among your donors that your work is not going to survive them, right? Because again, we're talking about gifts and wills, which we're going to go into detail on. Don't worry. I'm going to talk a lot about wills and why that's the place to start. I'm not just taking that for granted, and I don't ask you to. There might be a concern that your work is not going to survive them. You could have some preliminary conversations, but you might run into that objection, that there's a lot of passion, but at 3 years, I don't know about your longevity, so I like to see at least 5 years to overcome that potential fear among donors. That's you have more of a track record, so you have more loyal donors. You can tell who the consistent loyal donors are, even after just 5 years versus, just 3. But you're in the right place because you're thinking ahead. And as I said, you could have some preliminary conversations with folks, but just be prepared for the objection that, they don't feel like you've been around long enough for them to include you in their long-term plans. Okay. Be prepared for that, Dr. Sandy. I love that, Dr. Sandy. I love that. Congratulations, PhD. Outstanding. The board. I like to see the board have 100% participation. While they are board members, I think every board member should have the organization in their long-term plan in some method. That's a goal. Now, does every nonprofit that I've worked with meet that goal? No. Probably about 60, a little more than half, like 60% probably meet the goal. But I still think it's a worthy goal to ask for 100% participation among your board, your most committed, vested volunteers, that they each have some type of planned gift for your work. We've already debunked myth number 1 implicitly, but this makes it explicit. This is not too subtle, is it? This slide is too subtle. Is it not coming across? Perhaps I hope that's not the case. That the myth being that this is only for your wealthy donors, and the way we've already debunked it implicitly is when I was talking about looking for your most committed loyal donors, I said nothing about their giving history. The size of their gifts is what I mean specifically. I mean, we talked about the loyalty, of course, in their giving history, but the size of those gifts, their lifetime giving total, don't care. I don't care if they've been giving to you for those 30 years, or use that as an example, 30, 40 years, whatever, and their average gift is $5. I'm not being hyperbolic. I don't care. They're still a very good prospect for a planned gift because they think about you so often, and they've been doing it for so many years. So when you're looking for those committed loyal donors, don't constrain your queries by gift size or lifetime giving history. You'd be making a big mistake and leaving a lot of money on the table. That's myth number 1, cut off at the knees. So I told you, I'm not expecting you to take for granted that gifts and wills are the place to start. Here's my rationale. Here's my explanation for why I believe gifts and wills or charitable bequests, they mean the exact same thing. There's no difference, no sunlight between charitable bequests, gifts and wills. They mean the exact same thing. I use them interchangeably. So why? are wills the place to start? Here's a bunch of reasons. I promised you there's a little surprise for our hosts. The keen-eyed among you will have noticed that the first letter of each bullet spells out responsive, an homage to our hosts at Virtuous and We Are for Good for hosting us at the Responsive Nonprofit Summit. The slide's a little busy. There's a lot to it, but it's busier than most slides. But I was working with the word responsive. If they had called it the Acme Summit, there'd only be 4 bullets. But we're working with responsive, so that's what we've got. That's what we're working with. So responsive. Really, the average charitable bequest in the U.S. is $35,000. In Canada, it's $25,000. I'm guessing that for a lot of your organizations, maybe all of you, that's a major gift. People's ability to give through their estate plan, through their will, the gift we're talking about, gifts and wills, right, is often much greater than their ability to give during their lifetime. So planned gifts can be many multiples of lifetime giving. That's why we're not constraining those consistency and loyalty queries by gift size. And I mean, I've seen what I call the planned giving multiplier. I've seen planned giving multipliers in the thousands, where their planned gift was thousands of times larger than their entire lifetime giving history. Thousands of times. So you don't want to be thinking that folks who make small gifts through their lifetime are necessarily going to make a small planned gift. And the smallest gift in a will that I've ever seen is $1,000. I haven't seen anything smaller than that, and I've been doing this for 27 years. It's easily the most popular planned gift. You should expect at least, this is a minimum, 75% of all your planned gifts going out. You're gonna start planned giving soon, I hope, and you'll be doing planned giving for decades. And decades from now, you're still gonna have a minimum 3/4 of all your planned gifts are going to be simple gifts and wills. And I've seen it as high as 90% in some nonprofits. And you can pick the biggest charities you can think of. The most heavily endowed, I believe, I'm pretty sure it's Harvard University. I saw somebody in Boston, so not far from Boston, Cambridge, Harvard University with like around a $50 billion endowment. I'm quite comfortable assuring you that a minimum of 3/4 of their planned gifts are the simplest type of planned gift, a gift in people's wills, because they are the simplest planned gift. You'll get cash 99% of the time. I put this in case you may have naysayers. I have as little patience for naysayers as I do for these 5 insidious myths that we are debunking. The naysayers, the folks who focus on why we can't, why we shouldn't, instead of how we can. I don't have a lot of patience and tolerance for naysayers. So some of the naysayers might say, "Oh," and even when I channel them, I'm being insulting as I'm channeling them with my tone. And "Oh, it's going to be miserable. We're going to ask for gifts and wills, and you know what people are going to give us? They're going to give us junk cars and contested real estate. That's what and worthless Hummel collections. That's what we're going to get." I don't know. Maybe I'm dating myself. Hummel, those little collectibles are like this high, and maybe they had a moment maybe 30 years ago when they were worth something, and now they're worthless, but people still have the collections, these little things called Hummels. Oh, that's what they're going to give us. It's going to be terrible, and junk cars. Okay, naysayer, we don't have a lot of patience for you. First of all, I think you should think higher of your donors, better of your donors, than to think they're going to give you junk cars and worthless real estate and worthless Hummel collections. But all right, if that's what you think of our donors. Now, I was listening. I was with this guy, Tony something, M something, whatever, and he said, and he's been doing this for like 27 years, and 99% of the gifts that he's seen in gifts and wills are the most desirable, simplest, gifts of cash. And that is what you're going to get in the most overwhelmingly majority of cases. So let's not focus on the 1%. How about we focus on the 99%? They're going to be simple gifts of cash. And as I said earlier, many of those gifts are going to come unrestricted. The most desirable type of gift you can get, unrestricted gifts of cash. It's perfectly likely that you won't be told. That's because for every will that you know that you're in, there's another 7 to 8 wills that you're also in, but the donors are never going to tell you. It's just too private and too personal to them. They're just not going to tell you, no matter how many opportunities you give them to check a box that says, I've already included your organization name in my will, through either digital or print, however many options you give folks to identify as having done it. It's just too personal and private. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to let you know that they have done it. I mean, they've made the commitment. They're just not going to tell you. So take some comfort knowing that there's 7 to 8 for every will that you know about. There's another 7 to 8 out there where the folks just aren't going to tell you. So a lot of folks are not going to tell you, but you do give them lots of opportunities, and you do want to be promoting planned giving so that they will include you, and some folks will tell you. Only for the technical questions, ask donors to talk to their attorneys. Yes, you're not an expert on wills, whether it should be, your donor asks, should I do it as a percentage or as a dollar amount, or how do I do it? I've heard of this residual, any questions like that, you're politely referring your donor to their attorney, because you want to keep the conversation focused on what you're an expert in, which is your work, its value in the community, how important it is that your work remain for decades and generations, right? That it be sustainable. And you have that subject in common with the donors you'll be talking to, because you're talking to your most loyal, committed donors. So what you have in common, if nothing else, is your work. You love your work, and they love your work. That's what the subject is about. That's what the conversation is about. How important it is that that work continue and be sustainable. And that the conversation that you're having is about a gift in a will that will ensure that sustainability and that your work continues in the community. That's what the conversation is all about. Naturally best because it's so easy for your team and your donors. Gifts in wills. There are 3 things about wills that make this easy for your donors. Let's start with the donors, and then we'll talk about your team. Everybody knows what a will is. Everybody knows how wills work, and everybody knows they need to have a will. Those 3 things are in your favor because you don't have to spend precious marketing dollars and time educating your donors about the value of a charitable remainder unit trust with net income makeup provisions, which is a real thing. I didn't just string a whole bunch of words together. That thing really does exist. But you don't have to teach your donors about it, about the differences between charitable remainder trusts and charitable gift annuities, or the value of life insurance as a planned gift. You're focusing on the simplest planned gift, gifts in wills. Everybody knows what a will is. Everybody knows how wills work, and everybody knows they need one. Those 3 things are also helping your team because you don't have to educate your team about the nuances of that charitable remainder unit trust with net income makeup provisions. Simple gifts in wills. Everybody knows what we're talking about. You don't have to invest in professional education around planned giving. You can invest those professional development dollars in other, lots of, and all the other professional development opportunities that are out there. You don't need to expend them on planned giving details and technicalities of the Internal Revenue Code. Simple gifts in wills. It's simple for your donors, simple for your team. You're talking about what your donors love. It's your work. I guess I already teased that one. Yes, what you have in common with your donors. You each love the work that you're doing. That's what the conversation is about. It's not a technical conversation about wills. That's where you politely refer them to their attorney. Verily, I needed a V for responsive. If, like I said, if they had chose Acme, if it was the Acme Summit, we wouldn't have a V for verily, but we have a response. We got to work with responsive. Verily, you'll be moved by the giving histories. It is absolutely true. I still look at, you're looking at a one-dimensional giving history on a screen, and my synesthesia kicks in, and I get goosebumps. Because when you query for the longevity and you see the years that folks have been giving to you, it is moving. And as we've already said, those are the folks that you want to be talking to, who have that rich giving histories. Those rich giving histories. I'm going to try to keep the nouns and the what is that, an adverb? What is that? These. Well, anything. Anyway, we want to keep things in agreement in sentences, right? Try to do that. This is all about easy planned giving, because we're debunking myth number 2, that planned giving is too technical. Oh, you can hear the naysayers. Oh, we're going to need lawyers. Oh, it's going to be awful. We're going to be getting all these technical questions and we can't answer them. What peril are you have you wrought upon us with this planned giving? Naysayer, please. We're doing it with simple gifts and wills. It's not too technical for us. We can have the conversations, because the conversations are about the work that we know that our committed, loyal donors love, and including that work in their will. That's what we're talking to folks about, Naysayer. So it's not too technical. So there goes myth number 2, debunked, right alongside sort of its corollary, that we have to offer lots of planned gift options. No, you don't. 20 years from now, I'm hypothesizing, you're still going to be doing planned giving, and you could still be talking to folks about simple gifts and wills, and only simple gifts and wills, and you will have a very respectable, successful planned giving program. Scalable even. Scalable in numbers. It doesn't need to be scalable in planned gift options. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. And I think that's a comfort, that you don't have to go into the more technical if you don't want to. Because even if you did, 3/4 minimum of all your planned gifts are going to be gifts and wills anyway. So you're not foregoing that much if you don't go beyond simple gifts and wills. So there's debunked myth number 2, that it's too technical, and its corollary number 3, that we have to offer lots of gift options. It's not, and you don't. So this is where we've been so far. We're debunking 3 of the top 5 myths. And we're going to convey on. That's not really what I mean, right? I mean more like carry on. We're going to carry on. I've got some marketing tips for you. As a preliminary, I guess I should say, to the simple and low-cost marketing gifts, you're about to see that planned giving does not require a lot of money. So myth number 4, cut off at the knees. And you're about to see why in terms of marketing. When you have events, put a few speaking points into the remarks, and a sidebar, whether you have a digital program or a print program, easy remarks along the lines of, and it's a couple sentences, along the lines of, we're focusing on the long term. I mean, you all being here at the event, you all know how important our work is in the community, how important it is that it continue for decades, for generations. You wouldn't be here if you weren't committed to our work. And we're focusing now on the long term, and we're asking folks to include us in your wills, because that will support our sustainability. It's going to help us in the long term. It's very easy for you to do. Include us in your will. And maybe you refer to the program, maybe there's a contact person, but of course that contact person is just going to be talking about the value of long-term gifts to your work, right? We know that they are not answering technical wills questions. And that's it. That's all you need, like 4 or 5 sentences. So if you're drafting the speaking points or someone else is, maybe you're the speaker. A couple of sentences is all you need to start to be planting these seeds of gifts and wills at your events. And then I would do it, a mention in your program as well. Something similar, like it's just a sidebar. I'm a big fan of sidebars. Here we have again, print, sidebars of article. Oh, look at this. Look at this word here. Sidebars of articles. That doesn't make any sense. Sidebars or articles. Or, oh, that's egregious. Slide 13. I'm sure you're going to get a survey. I would say, mark this up in the survey. Tony M, M something, whatever, seemed like a nice guy, but slide 13.
You recognize the mistake and you're leaning forward in it. And I love that.
Yeah, slide 13. He has an error. Make sure you point that out in your survey. He was pretty good overall, but error on slide 13. It's very bad. Okay. Sidebars or articles in your newsletter. Thank you, Eric. I mean, if I can't hide it, I may as well show it off.
Own it, right?
Sidebars or articles in your newsletter, annual report. Again, big fan of sidebars because a sidebar in like 40, 50 words, you can cover it all. You don't have to write a 250-word article on the importance of wills and how much harder is it to get an article through approval and consent than to get a simple sidebar with like 40, 50 words.
Tony, I love that you did this because one of the things I did for a couple of nonprofit organizations was I worked with our attorney to come up with the actual language that we would want our donors and our constituents to have in their wills. And so at the bottom of every annual report, we'd say, if you do choose to continue our organization in your will or your life estate plans, this is the language to use, because it helped us on the back end, whether it's like whatever your organization, Inc., all the different components, because it valued that from our end. And it also allowed us to know who put us in their will, and we can track that accordingly in our systems.
Absolutely, Eric. Yes. And consistent with that, there are 3 things that you want to share with folks in these sidebars. Hopefully you won't be tasked to write an article. You can use the simple sidebar. That's your legal name, the name under which you're incorporated, which might not be the name that you use publicly, but your legal name, your federal tax ID, US or Canadian, and your office address. With those 3 things, folks can go to their attorneys or other advisors, but we're talking about wills, so they'd be going to their attorney and they can say, I want to include the organization, in my will. Your legal name, your tax ID, and your office address. That's all they need. So in the sidebar, you put that in. And the sidebar, basically is what I had mentioned as the speaking points for the event. It's all just repurpose. Same 4 or 5 sentences. Newsletter, annual report. If you're recognizing other donors in your annual report, and I've been through those exercises, wait, does it? No, she doesn't use doctor. This is not Dr. Sandy. She doesn't use doctor in her name. But this other, she does want the PhD after her name. But this couple, they want to be listed as a couple. This other couple, they want to be listed separately. I've been in those excruciating meetings over the conference table for, they go on for hours. And then still you have spelling errors and you listed the couple incorrectly. The other couple, you listed them wrong. But if you're going through that exercise for all your other donors, you should do the same for your planned giving donors. And you're inviting other folks to join them and include your work in their wills. And you're only recognizing your planned giving donors with their consent, of course, to use their name. In digital, repurposing sidebars or articles, see the spelling has improved. So, in that same survey, I would say, well, slide 14, he did get it right. He spelled "or" correctly on slide 14 there. So there we go. The trend line is upward. Very good. Very encouraging. So repurpose those sidebars. Hopefully you don't have to do the articles, but on your digital platforms, of course, digital channels, simple page on your website, a word here. You don't need the Planned Giving encyclopedias. There are companies that will charge you like $500 per quarter to host an encyclopedia, their encyclopedia of Planned Giving on your website, where scholarly Planned Giving practitioners can go to evaluate the nuances of that charitable remainder unit trust with net income makeup provisions. Right. You don't need that. You don't need that expense. You don't need the Planned Giving encyclopedia. You don't need the income and tax calculators. Simple gifts and wills. That's it. That's all we need. So what does go on a page? Maybe 2 pages, but I'd say most organizations, 1 page should be enough for Planned Giving. Certainly not a Planned Giving website, a page, a picture of a donor or donor couple, maybe a pull quote from the donor or donor couple about how easy it was or about how important your work is to them. And that's why they included you in each of their wills. Of course, each of the people has their own will. There's no couple wills, but why they each included you in their will. And that's it. Well, that's not it quite. Again, repurpose the sidebar. So about how important your work is in the community, some short paragraph about that. And then maybe there's a contact person, but we know that contact person is not having technical conversations, right? They're talking about your work and its sustainability. And there's a web page, like there's a Planned Giving web page. And as a little tip, email signature. Everybody can put this in their email signature. You can include us in your will. It's easy to do. This moves us on to debunked myth number 5, that Planned Giving is going to hurt our other fundraising. Oh, the naysayers. Oh, you're going to kill our annual fund. We have these monthly sustainers. You're going to kill them. They're going to put us in their will, and they're going to stop their other fundraising. Naysayer, please with the naysaying already. We've heard enough about the how we can't and why we shouldn't. Naysayer, we're now going to focus on the why we can and how we can. Again, I've been doing this for 27 years. I have seen thousands of folks who have told nonprofits that they have included the organization in their wills, and those folks have increased their other giving. Not just kept it flat, increased their other giving. Why do they do that? Because they feel so close. Because they've put you alongside their husband, wife, partner, children, grandchildren in their will. That's where you are. You're among all those dear loved ones. That's how much they love you. They've put a gift for you right alongside all those folks. And they love you that much that they increase their other giving. Now you might say, okay, well, this guy, Tony M, whatever it was, M something, anecdotes. He's got 27 years, but it's all anecdotes. 27 years of anecdotes. Meaningless anecdotes. Okay. Then I would refer you to Professor Russell James.
So good.
At Texas Tech. Oh, Eric, you know Russell James?
Oh, I know him well. He's so smart. So
yes,
good.
He is. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. He's at Texas Tech University, and his area of professional scholarly research is Planned Giving fundraising. And one of the research projects that he did is, how does Planned Giving affect other methods of giving by the same people? And he specifically, in this research project, was looking at gifts in wills, not the other planned gifts. So this is specific research to gifts in wills. And he found that on average, 75% of the donors to the charities that he surveyed increased their other giving to that nonprofit.
Yeah.
That's 75% of the donors, not of the nonprofits. 75% of the donors who told that charity that they included the charity in their will increased their giving to that, increased their other giving to that same charity.
Well, and
So
I think there's like, we live in these silos in our own organizations, right? Like our annual fund donors or digital donors or major donors or plan. But like, if we equip everybody around the table to be able to help and enhance the current experience, it's going to grow. I mean, I had an anecdotal story where one of my gift officers was a frontline fundraiser, and she went to go meet a donor and asked for a gift on this for a 5-year pledge for a major gift. The donor ended up giving 25 over a 5-year period, but included the organization in their life estate plans in their will. And we didn't even know. And it turned out to be $1 million gift from the will, as well as the cash. It was just so impactful, but we would have never known if we weren't out there asking and enhancing our entire team.
I couldn't have said it better. That's also, Eric, that's a great example of the planned giving multiplier. That person gave a $25,000 gift. Now, maybe they had other lifetime giving also, but it was $1 million gift in their will.
Yep.
So many, what is that? 40
and
times?
The first time anyone from the organization met with this individual. First time.
First time. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you got my anecdotes. You've got Professor Russell James studying at Scholarly, and you've got a story from Eric. It's not going to hurt your other fundraising. Lots of donors increase their other giving to your nonprofit after they've told you they've included you in their will. So I'm not even going to say sorry to the naysayers, because I'm not sorry for I feel badly for the naysayers, but I'm not sorry that we have debunked their fifth insidious myth. I don't have a lot of patience for the naysayers. I don't. So I feel badly, but I'm not sorry for the naysayers. And this is where we have been together. The what and why. You want to make sure you're talking to the right people. How to get started. That was all about charitable bequests. Gave you some marketing strategies. And along the way, we have debunked those nasty, insidious myths that very regrettably keep small and mid-sized nonprofits away from planned giving. So hopefully you're feeling closer to planned giving, closer to those deeper relationships that I opened with. And I got just one slide on continuing ed. If you would like to know more about planned giving, if you want to dive deeper, there's a book I recommend. It's sitting right here on my bookshelf, Planned Giving Simplified. It's true to its name if you want to go deeper in planned giving. I have a how-to guide, a PDF download, Unleash the Game-Changing Power of Planned Giving at your nonprofit. If you want to snap that QR code, that will take you to the download page, and you will get a little more detail on everything I talked about today. I also host a podcast, Tony Martigenetti Nonprofit Radio. It is not just about planned giving. So, if you're looking for a planned giving podcast, this is not that. I do planned giving fundraising, but the podcast is not devoted to planned giving. It's all things that I think small and mid-sized shops struggle with. We've got over 13,000 weekly listeners. Virtuous, one of our hosts here, happens to be a sponsor of Nonprofit Radio. And if you would like to get the weekly insider alerts to know about who the guests are, you can snap the orange QR code with my little image in the center there. That's for the Nonprofit Radio.
Tony, this was awesome.
We are.
We love your podcast. We love your radio. We love sponsoring the work you're doing and supporting nonprofit leaders. And honestly, like the entire chat has been blowing up about loving your motivation, your enthusiasm, your passion, and like we love you, Tony. Your wisdom has been dropping a bunch of knowledge bombs here.
Awesome. What about that? All right. What about that slide 13 error? Anybody?
No, we forgot about it. Why stop bringing it up?
All right. Thanks, everybody. It's 12:45, right on time.
Right on time, guys. Friends, we are here. We're approaching the midpoint of the Responsive Nonprofit Summit on day 2. We've got a 15-minute break. I do want to give a shout out. We've got 5 stages going on. We've got the main stage. We've got the conversation stage. We've got the tech stage. We got a workshop stage where you guys are right now. And then we also have a demo stage. Someone asked in the questions was like, where do you see planned giving inside of Virtuous? I'd recommend going into the demo stage and actually going into it and actually seeing Virtuous. Actually, you can put annuities and planned giving and opportunities directly into the record, into our CRM. So you can be able to go over there to the demo stage. Special thanks to all of our sponsors that makes this thing free and attainable. CFRE credited. These sessions are going to be, if you can't make all the sessions all at once, if you don't have the speed to go to every stage, all these sessions are going to be recorded and you're going to be able to see these later this afternoon. Thank you to our sponsors. We've got Amphil, we've got Microsoft, we've got Feather, we've got Windfall, we've got One Calls, we've got Community Boost, Classy, Cows Camp, and Nonprofit Pro. We got a ton of them. So thank you. Go get some water. Go to the restroom, do a hydration break, and we'll see you here in 15 minutes. Thank you, Tony. You're awesome.
Thank you, Eric. And thank you, everybody. Thanks so much.